Welcome to Frequencies of Praise podcast. My name is Diana, your host. Frequencies of Praise is a podcast for worship leaders and kingdom creatives and believers where we are exploring the deep conversations and the deep wells from which worship and I believe all frequencies of praise flow from, namely the Father's heart. Our hope in this podcast is to be able to equip and inspire worship leaders both on the stage but really off stage in their daily lives to be rooted and grounded in communion with the heart of their Father and have that be the informed conversation around everything that we think about when it comes to worship. I believe right now that God is raising up a generation of musicians and kingdom warriors to bring heaven's sound into this earth, and that is part of the reason why I started this podcast, to really dive deeper into the nuances of these conversations around worship. And I'm so excited today because we have a very, very special guest. This is a dear friend of mine. He's also been a mentor of mine at some point, and just a really, really cool person with a lot of amazing stories to tell that we probably only will get into a couple of them today. You have Dallas Marley. Dallas, so excited to have you here. I would say Dallas is an entrepreneur. He's a mentor. He's also a missionary based in Quito, Ecuador, and he's originally from Texas. He's launched multiple successful businesses while also supporting others through business coaching and personal mentorship. He helps leaders align their visions with their values. And Dallas is also one of the founders of BlueJay House, a worship movement out of Lubbock, Texas, and he is currently serving at Casa Mis Sueños in Quito, Ecuador, to help fight human trafficking. Wow, I'm stumbling over my words. I think I told Dallas earlier, I'm like, I think I'm just a little nervous for whatever reason. I haven't really been nervous doing these interviews before, but I'm really, really excited about this. So tell us a little bit more about yourself. Expound on that. You're a man of many hats and a huge heart.
Yeah. When Diana messaged me, she said, "What is your title?" And I was like, "I'm just a simple man," which is in many ways kind of the opposite of what I am, because I do many different things and I have many different projects that I've helped start or worked on or I'm a part of. And so, quick background on me: I grew up an atheist, was an atheist from probably the time I was 8 or 10 years old until I was 21. Got radically saved in college. And I was, very broken, doing all the things: drugs, alcohol, women, selling drugs. I mean, it was like, it was a very broken lifestyle. And I had a very radical encounter with God that lasted a number of months. And, anyways, like slowly, all of my ambitions faded. I wanted to be rich. I wanted to be successful. I wanted to be all these things, to like, I just want to be a pastor. And then I remember, like, I did everything I could to become a pastor. And we were a part of a few different churches. We watched a lot of like difficult things happen in church. During that time, we'd go to a conference and somebody would point at me from the stage and say, "Hey, will you stand up? You have an entrepreneurial gift on your life." And I would just like sit back down. I'm like, no, that's not for me. And so anyways, in 2019 was a really crazy year for us because we ended up being asked to lead a church that had just gone through a very difficult transition in their leadership. And at the same time, it was the year that the Lord birthed entrepreneurship in our lives. So it was really crazy because I had lost all interest to be a businessman. And, but that year I woke up at the first of the year, like literally at the first of 2019, I woke up and I just had this feeling in me that was like, if all of these people who run businesses can do it, I can do it. And we ended up jumping in, buying a wedding venue. It was a crazy story. And what's really crazy about it is we bought it in August 2019, and then everyone obviously knows what happened in March 2020. So it
Right.
seemed like the craziest time, but it was really the
Right.
Lord.
Wow.
And so we ended up working with that church. We kind of carried that church through a transition season until the Lord actually asked us to close the doors of the church. And
Mm.
at the same time that we closed the doors, we helped one of my best friends launch a ministry called the BlueJay House, which is in Lubbock, Texas. And so um, I didn't know much about what the BlueJay House was. I had been to the very first event. In fact, the first event was in October 2020. In that point of my life, we were running the church. I had just started a business that was taking off and was becoming very successful, and I was extremely depressed.
Mm.
And I was like, I was done. The summer during COVID, I was getting like counseling and therapy and like inner healing every week. And I would have like the most insane like encounters with God, and then I would wake up the next day and still be depressed.
Mm.
And so it was just this like challenging season. And then after COVID, we opened the church back up, or after like the
Mhm.
shutdown, we opened our church back up, and like our entire staff had resigned, and
Wow.
like the church had like cut down like 80% of the people.
Oh my gosh.
And so it was very challenging. Our entire time pastoring was challenging because when we took over leadership of that church, we watched the church go from like 700 to 70 over the course of a few weeks, and not because of things that we had done, but just because of like the history of the church. And so so after COVID, it was like we had built back up. Great things were happening before COVID, and then after COVID, it was like, what just happened? And I remember one day in October 2020, I was driving, and I just like was talking to the Lord. I was going to work an event for my business, and I said, God, the only thing I'm good at is business. So I'm going to close the church. I'm going to get put on depression medication, and I'm just going to do business because apparently it's the only thing that I'm good at. And like nothing happened. Like I didn't hear anything, nothing
Hmm.
crazy happened. And then 3 days later, this guy called me, and his name is David Smith. And he was like, "Hey man, do you remember me? I came to your church back in February before COVID." And I was like, "Yeah, I remember you." Um, and he was like, "Well, we're hosting this worship event, and we're bringing in like people from Bethel, and we're bringing in friends that I know from Atlanta, and like we're gonna like record these worship nights." And I was like, "Wow, that
Mm.
that sounds amazing." He's like, I was like, "When is it?" He was like, "It's Friday." I was like, "Great. Can I go?" He's like, "Yeah, but we need a sound system." I was like, "Oh, well, seems like you haven't planned very well, but I have a sound system and you can use it." And so he picked it up, and they had like cleared out his whole house, and all the couches were in the garage, and like we recorded this worship night. And that day I showed up, and that was probably a week after I'd had that conversation with the Lord.
Mhm.
And I showed up at his house for the worship night. And the night before, the Lord had spoke to me and said, "Invite him to come preach at your church." I was like, "Okay."
Mhm.
And so I showed up and I said, "Hey, how's it going?" And he was like, "Oh, it's going great. How are you doing?" And like out of my mouth just was like, "I'm not doing good. I need God to touch me." And he just looks at me and he smiles and he's like, "Well, you just go on inside. Don't worry about it. Like God's going to do this thing." And then I asked him to come preach at our church. And then sure enough, like that night, I did have an encounter with the Lord where the Lord began to like break down like years of like discouragement and disappointment.
Mm.
And so that was amazing. And then like 2 weeks later, he came to preach. And on the morning that he came to preach, I woke up at 5 a.m. on Sunday, and the Lord spoke to me and he said, "Dallas, you're not depressed, you're oppressed. You don't need medicine, you need freedom."
Wow.
And I was like, that's great, Lord, because uh, I think freedom is gonna be a much quicker solution than like years of medicine and whatever. And I'm not against medicine. I just like I whenever before I got saved, I was depressed and I had been on medication for years. And
Mm.
so anyways, that morning I go to church, I lay on the floor for an hour and during worship, and the Lord did things in me, and I got up completely delivered, like completely
Wow.
free.
Wow.
The thing was, is that was pretty normal for me. Like my life going from I'm doing good, and then life happens, and now I'm not doing good. I need to go to a conference. I need to go to an altar. I need to go to a prayer meeting. I need to go to a worship night. I need God to touch me so I can get
Hmm.
free again. And then I'm doing good. And then something happens. Now I'm not doing good. And so my Christian walk was like this. And so the significance of the BlueJay House is, people hear the story and they're like, oh, so like God delivered you. And I'm like, yeah, I had been delivered before. I had been set free before. What I didn't have before was the truth. Kept me
Mm.
free.
Oh.
And so I remember like having these conversations with David, who was the founder of the BlueJay House, who is the founder.
Uh-huh.
And through these conversations, like he would just say things that like it didn't make sense to me what he was saying. So like he would tell me about BlueJay and he would say, this is our vision. We're going to travel the world. We're going to minister to the Lord, and we're going to preach the gospel, and there's going to be revival. And like every time he said that, I had two things going through my head. One was like, that's cool. And the second one was, we're going to have to preach a better message than the gospel if we want to see revival.
Whoa.
And like, and it wasn't like, I wasn't consciously thinking that, but like subconsciously, I was like, hopefully the Lord really shows up in worship, because I don't think preaching the gospel is going to be the thing that brings revival.
Wow.
And through a series of conversations with him, I realized that I didn't understand the gospel. Like I had been saved, and even looking back on my salvation experience, like it was a picture of the gospel. And even my moments after being saved, like I was so aware that I had become a new creation, which is one
Mm.
of the foundations to me of the gospel. Whenever I got
Mm-hmm.
saved, I was so aware that it was not based on my works, but his. It wasn't based on
Yes.
the message that I received, wasn't about what I have to do. It was about what he's
Yeah.
already done. And somewhere along the way, I like lost that message, and I stopped making it about what he did, and I started making it about what I needed to do.
Should we
And
talk about that a little bit more to explain? I'm sure you are, but
yeah,
I'm
yeah, we
like, let's get
can.
into that a little
You
bit
know,
because we've talked about this before.
I didn't tell you this. I'm actually working on a book right now, and I talk about this a lot in the book. But like the message of religion, and when I say religion, I'm not talking about like organized religion. When I say religion, there's a negative connotation to what I'm saying. Like the message of religion, which was the message that in Jesus's time that opposed Jesus. The
Mm.
message of religion is try harder. Like if you could sum it up in two words, it's try harder.
Whew.
A voice in your head that says you're not doing good enough. You need to be doing more. What are you doing to measure yourself by? The voice in your head that's constantly making you like measure your life and count how good you're doing. And the voice in your head that's like, have I checked off enough boxes? Have I done
Right.
the things? The voice
Right.
in your head that is telling you that the the effectiveness, the how good your relationship with God is going based on your performance, that's
Right.
religion.
Right. Can you like expound on that a little bit more? Because we are talking to a believer audience of like, what does that sneaky, disguised, masked voice of religion really look like and manifest in like someone who really is trying to seek after the Lord and doing all the right things?
Yeah, it can look like so many different things. On the outside, you could look at someone who looks like they're on fire for God,
Hmm.
and it not actually be fire, it be religion. And
Hmm.
let me explain why. I talk about this in the book too. It's about intention and what is driving you. Are you being driven
Mm.
from love or for love? Are you doing
Whoa.
all of the things that you're doing because you want to matter You want to have significance in the world. You want to be somebody. Are you doing them all so that you'll get God to move? Which, I mean, you want to go down a rabbit trail and worship today.
Right.
How
No,
much
that
time
was
do we
exactly what I'm
spend?
thinking about.
Like, how much time do we spend like, hey, what do I need to do to get God to move? And prior to me meeting David
Ooh,
in the BlueJay House, like my view towards worship was like, what do
whoa.
we need to do to see God move? And in my mind, breakthrough was always in the future. Breakthrough, healing, deliverance, like it was always in the future, and like God was holding it back. And if I could get the right formula, then He would release it. And as I began to understand like the gospel and the finished work, I began to
Right.
realize like breakthrough's not in the future, it's in the past. It happened 2,000 years ago. Like healing and deliverance isn't in the future, it's in the past. Everything that needs to be done for me to have complete unfettered access to God was done by
Yes.
Jesus.
Yes.
And when we make it about what we have to do, then it's religion. And I'm not saying we don't have a part to play. I'm not.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but when it comes to I'm measuring myself, I'm thinking, listen, I can talk to you as a person who does ministry. Like whenever I got into ministry, there was this idea that, and I remember the church that it came out of, and it was really powerful revelation, which was like, if you want to feed the sheep, you have to give them what God is feeding you. Meaning, if you want to be able to pour out, you need to let God pour into you. Meaning, if you want to be able to give, you have to have time in the secret place. And it's this like idea of like, you can't pour out if you're empty, and you can't give revelation if you haven't received it.
Right.
And it's this, and it like, it sounds really, 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 really good. And it is really good, but it can become really bad.
Yes, I actually agree. I think I know where you're going, and I was about to
Yeah.
say something, but keep going.
Like it can become really bad whenever it's like two things. One is when I'm like, I haven't spent time with the Lord. So if if I haven't spent time with the Lord, I'm not going to be anointed. If I'm not anointed, I'm not going to be able to give, and I'm not going to be able to do these things.
Right, right. Like, let me interject really quick because that's the nuance that I feel really frustrated with in the overall worship conversation in general is I feel like subliminally, and I know that this isn't people's hearts, but subliminally people are basically saying, if you haven't spent time in the secret place, what are you doing leading worship? Which I'm not going to negate because there's a lot of truth to that, but the subliminal message in that is, um, I am now seeking the secret place so I could be a better worship leader. And that's a really bad motivation, meaning that can be a motivation, but that should be on like the lesser of the list, meaning I want to be seeking after the Lord because I'm just I want to cry to him. I'm just so hungry for him. I want his presence. I want to hunger after him. I know that like I can't I like it's especially as I'm doing new things and new endeavors in my life and like it's exciting, but like I wake up the next day and I hit a wall of just like, whatever. I'm like, I can't do anything that the Lord has called me to if I don't just have the bread of his presence, basically. And I am not seeking it so I can be a better worship leader or a better entrepreneur or a better minister or whatever. I'm literally seeking him because I'm seeking him. And I think that is like, there's a very conflicting message that I think we get, but keep going.
Yeah. So I want to like continue the story a little bit because what I want to add to this comes next in the story. So,
Hmm.
um, so anyways, like, I'll kind of speed it up, but basically I remember having this conversation with David and we were talking about being offended and being hurt. And I don't want to go too far down this rabbit trail, but it's a message that I love to preach. But I was in my head, I had really justified that like, you're just going to be hurt and you're going to be offended and that's just normal. And he challenged me to say, well, show me that in the life of Jesus. And it like reframed so many things about how I thought, but it was very offensive to me because I was like, that doesn't make sense because I've studied psychology, and from a psychological perspective, you have to process your feelings and they have to be real. And so anyways, I don't want to go deep into this because I want to get to the next part of the story.
Hmm.
What happened is I remember getting off a call with him, and I said, Lord, I don't think I believe that this is real. And the if I could sum everything up in like one thing to explain like what I was being challenged by was like that I'm not just going to be broken for the rest of my life, but that actually the life of Jesus is a life that I can live. And it's not my end goal, it's where I get to start. And I realized
That's so good.
like if you don't start where he finished, you spend all your time trying to do what he's already done. And so it was just this like this thing
Wow.
of like, well, Jesus wasn't offended, but he was Jesus, and I can't do that. But maybe one day when I die, I'll be that way. And he was showing me this truth of like, it's no longer you who lives, it's Christ who lives in you. As he is in this world, so are you. And like the reality of these verses of like his life isn't this like burden as a standard. It's true liberty and freedom, that when we
Mm.
walk as he walked, we don't have to be hurt and we don't have to be offended, and we get to totally walk as a new creation and have peace in every circumstance. And so, anyways, it was confronting me and offending me. And one day I was like, Lord, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if this is true. And he said, it's true. And I said, okay, well,
Wow.
for it to be true for me to be able to preach this message, it's going to have to become true for me, because right now it doesn't
Right.
feel real.
Right.
And the next morning, I was in a prayer meeting that I was leading, Burn 24/7 House of Prayer in Lubbock, Texas. I was leading the 6 a.m. set, not singing, but praying. I mean, I would sing, but you didn't want to hear me sing. Um, Nobody would show up, be 6 a.m., me and one other guy, like he didn't care if I sang. And so, but I'm sitting in there like supposed to be prayer leading. I've been sitting in there for an hour. It's a 2-hour set, and I can't pray. And finally, I look at Craig. I was Craig's pastor. I was like, Craig, I can't pray today. I think I just heard the gospel for the first time yesterday. And Craig is like, what? Like he's on the keys and he's like, what? And and all I can think about is
Mm.
I've been so wrong. Like I was so close. It sounded good. I could quote scripture, but it was wrong. And 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 so I finally started praying, and I said, God, forgive me for not believing the simple truth of the gospel.
Oh.
Forgive me for not believing in everything that's already been finished. And I thank you that I'm already free. And I thank you that I'm already whole. And I thank you for what you already have done. And I'm going to stop living in disappointment and resentment towards what you haven't done yet, what I think you haven't done yet. And like that was the turning point of my entire life. Like next to being saved and
Mm.
baptized in the Holy Spirit, that was like a turning
Right.
point.
Right.
And like depression has not come back. Like I have like I don't it's this is such a weird thing to measure by, and sometimes people are like, why do you say that? And I'm like, I just don't know how to explain it any other way. I don't have bad days.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's like I'm not saying that
Yeah.
there aren't bad moments. I'm saying like I've learned this like secret of being content. And so anyways, like there's a lot of things that I learned through this, and I could talk about it a lot, but I want to get to the main thing, which is like the next Sunday or the next day on that later that day, I called David. I was like, bro, you have to come preach this message again. And he's like, okay. So he shows up on Sunday, 5 days later. Worship is over. He's about to get called up, and he walks up to me and he said, hey, bro, I'm not preaching today. And I was like, I looked at my watch. I was like, yeah, you are. And he was like, no, the Lord told me I'm not preaching, that you need to preach. And I said, dude, I have known this message for 5 days. And he looked at me and he said, it's in you. Just get up and talk. And so I like pull out my notes and I'm like trying to write down like scriptures and notes. And the Lord speaks to me and he's like, don't, like, just get up
Yeah.
and it's going to come. And I got up and preached for like 25 minutes.
Mm.
And um, it was the craziest thing because I sat down and I wept. And the reason that I wept is because I saw the look on people's faces. And I
Mm.
realized that for years I had been preaching a different message. And I knew how to preach and I could make people cry. And I wasn't like trying to make them cry. I was trying to make them have
Right.
encounters with God, but like
Right. Right.
I knew how to like bring people to tears. I knew how to like um I may not have been the best orator, but I knew how to preach good messages, and I knew how to preach biblical messages, and I knew
Right.
how to get revelation from God, and I knew how to like hear the Lord. I mean, I was like a very prophetic preacher. Um, but the message that I had been preaching for years was one that put a yoke on people.
Wow.
And the gospel takes the yoke off. And that day I saw the yoke fall off. And
Wow.
it didn't click for everybody on the first day, but I saw it in the face of a few people. Because when the gospel gets preached, the real gospel,
Yeah.
the yoke comes off. I love, like
Right.
Ron Harbonke says, when the gospel gets preached, it becomes an event. It happens. And I understood, like, the message before was like, it sounded so good. It sounded so holy. But at the end of the day, it was like, try harder, clean yourself up a bit
Right.
more.
Right.
And that was a noble pursuit because I had watched these men fail. And I was like, I don't want to fail. I need to get myself clean. I need to try to do all of these things. I got to clean this church up. There's been so much brokenness. But at the end
Right.
of the day, it resulted in us trying to clean ourselves up so that God would do something instead of understanding like he's done everything and he makes us new from the inside. Like he
Right.
cleans the inside of the cup. And so
Mm.
I finished that story to get to this part, which is going back to what we were saying earlier, which is the next day I sat down with the Lord and it was like a weird day. Oh, sorry, not the next day. A few months later, we closed the church. Sorry,
Mm-hmm.
we a few months later, for 5 months straight, I preached with no sermon prepped. The Lord would not let me write a message. I would just get up and preach.
Mm.
And after 5 months, I was sitting in service one day and I felt the grace lift. And I was like, wow, that's weird. Uh, we're done. Like this church is finished. And I had a conversation with somebody and the Lord spoke to me and he said, um, Dallas, you have finally begun to understand what it means to become brand new. And that was like the basis of the gospel for me was like, I didn't have to
Mm.
clean all the old stuff up. Like I thought God needed to heal it, fix it. I thought I had to go through every memory, find every traumatic experience, like dig to the root, go back generations, find generational trauma, I mean, like I was like on this journey of like trying to clean everything and like find the roots. And the Lord like showed me like you don't need these things to be healed. They need to be killed so that there can be a rebirth of a new creation. And you're tracking your family tree when you don't understand I want to graft you into a new tree where
Oh,
you're
that's
not
so
like
good.
like where
That's
you're not
so
going
good.
back on your old tree and trying to figure out like hidden sins of
Oh,
your
that's
ancestors,
so
right?
good.
And so it was this idea of like I don't want to fix. I want a death, a burial, and a resurrection into completely
Oh,
new
that
life.
is so good. And that is the core of the gospel, literally, because people, if you talk, more theology wise, which I have thoughts about that, but if you just get to the basic foundational theology of Christians, you can't have Christianity, you can't have our faith without the incarnation, the death, and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. You just can't.
Yeah.
So,
And
and we're supposed to be like him and in and through him and all that
yeah,
stuff.
and
Anyways,
like his death is my death, his burial is my burial, and his resurrection
yes,
is my resurrection. Like if it just happens to him and it doesn't happen to me, it's not the full picture. And so
right.
on the day I feel the grace lift, and the Lord's like, close the church. And I'm like, okay, why? And he said, because you've been trying to resuscitate this church, and I want it to die so I can do a new thing.
Hmm.
And so that's what led me into going full time helping BlueJay. And the
Okay.
very next, like a week later, we closed the church. And so a week later on Sunday, we closed the church. And on Monday, I sat down with the Lord, and I'm like feeling a lot of different emotions because when I got saved, my dream was to be a pastor. And I had
Hmm.
become a pastor, and it was a very difficult experience for me. And now I was no longer a pastor, but I was like doing better than I ever had. But I'm still like sitting with this, like, what are we doing now? And so I'm sitting in this chair with the Lord where I would like meet with the Lord at my house in Texas. And I said, God, what do you want me to do? And he said, nothing. And I said, well, do you want me to pray? And he said, no. And I said, do you want me to worship? And he said, no. And I said, do you want me to read my Bible? And he said, no. And I was like, well, what do you want me to do? And he said, I want you to sit in this chair and let me love you with no strings attached. I want you to let me love you without you doing anything to deserve it. And what I didn't know was going to happen is that he was going to say the same thing every single day to me for 9 months. The next day I sit down, what do you want me to do? You want me to pray? No. Worship? No. Read my Bible? No. Which I know can sound like heresy. But the reason he was, the reason that he was telling me that wasn't because the worship and the prayer in the Bible were bad. The reason is because from the moment that I stepped foot into a church, Bible, worship, and prayer became a means to a ministry position. And I didn't know how to do those things apart from trying to get something from God so I could give it to people. And I didn't know how to do those things without trying to get his love in return. And I began to realize that I had prostituted my secret place, intimacy with the Lord, for a position, a title, status, and the opinion of other people. Because look, I was an expert at doing the thing. I could go spend time with the Lord and hear what God was saying, and then go to a prayer meeting and release the word of the Lord, and people would think, wow, he's so prophetic or whatever. Like, I don't know what they all thought, but I mean, I thought that I was pretty hot. And like, but the thing is like, the secret place had just become a means to an end, and I didn't know how to let it love me. And I think that it's like, do I think you need to spend time with the Lord so that you'll be, so that you actually have something to give in public? Yes. You can't lead me in worship if you don't know how to go there. Like, you need to know how to go face to face into the throne room of heaven to be able to lead people there. I believe that. But you cannot prostitute that and make it your only reason is that you're doing it so that you can get something. And I'll say this one last thing, because I think you probably want to jump in, but like, it's like I didn't know how to be loved, and I didn't know how to love God without expecting something in return. And it's like, if I go buy my wife flowers so that night she'll have sex with me, those flowers weren't for her. They were for me. And that's so much of our lives to the Lord, of like, Lord, look at all these things I'm doing for you, but you're not doing it. Like, you're not giving it freely. You're giving it expecting something in return, and love doesn't give expecting something in return. And so in that season, like, I had to learn how to let God love me, but I also had to learn how to love God, not expecting anything in return. And it's not a matter of that he doesn't want to give us things in return. It's a matter of like God brought my heart to this place of like, Lord, I don't know if I've ever given you a gift, and I didn't expect you to give me something back. And I want to be able to give this gift to you without wanting you to give me something back, because I want it to be for you and not for me. And I really believe that this is something that our generation has a hard time with. And the reason is because there's a lot of reasons, but this is just something that it's very important to me. And it's something that even to this day, that has shaped the way that I receive love from God and I give love to God, of like, Lord, I want to give not expecting anything in return, because you're worthy of an amazing gift. And I want to be able to let you love me without feeling like I have to earn it.
Right. Ugh, I think if I had to struggle with one of those things, it would be that second one of just like But yeah, oh man, I feel like there's so many things that you said that I'm like, can we just sit on that and pause on that? But I know we're all kind of, this train is heading in a specific direction, so we're not going to pause. But yeah, no, I'm 100% with you. I think, we forget probably 99% of everything we've ever heard in terms of a sermon. But one of the sermons from years ago that always stuck with me was one of my pastors was talking about just the idea of the pursuing intimacy to an end, and really saying, like, if it is actually transactional, then it is prostitution, essentially. And in my head, because intimacy is such a, well, intimate thing, it's beautiful, it's like, in my head, I didn't really think you could prostitute intimacy with the Lord. And because, like, like, but and we're gonna see this more on charismatic side of the church rather than a little bit more of the reformed kind of conservative side of the church, where we are trying to, like, stir up the gifts, we're trying to stir up the, and there's, like I said, it's a micro distinction um between outwardly it might look the same, but and when people talk about the entire, well, is a matter of the heart, and that sounds cliche, but it's true at the end of the day. Where, yeah, like, you're talking about bringing a gift, and I'm just thinking about the oil that was broken at Jesus's feet. And I mean, truly, like, when you think about that, there was no ulterior motive other than just, like, the verse that always comes to mind for me when I try to explain the reason why I just can't help but worship is, like, he who has been loved much, or he who has been forgiven much loves much.
Mm.
And I mean, when I experienced just such brokenness growing up in the church, not knowing anything about the Father's heart, not knowing anything about the Holy Spirit, not knowing he could be my comforter and my friend and my healer and my deliverer. And I grew up knowing Jesus loves me, and if I put my trust in him, I'll go to heaven one day. I knew that, but I didn't have any relationship with God. So when I found out for the first time just how much he loved me, because he cared about where I was at, and he actually wanted to deliver me from all the torment and the brokenness and the pain that I was in, and I experienced that God, I have been head over heels in love with him ever since. That wasn't like a summer camp high that happened and I kind of came down from it eventually. Like, I have been in love with him continually. Yeah, I've had dry seasons, but since that day, and that's not, and that I've never not felt that just immense amount of love and gratitude towards him. And when even when I'm leading worship, like, I just, again, it's like these micro distinctions, because you have one side of church saying, use your gifts, use your gifts for God. And then you have another side of the same coin. And sometimes the same people being like, you shouldn't want the stage. You shouldn't desire the stage. It's not about performance. It's not about, like, and so you're like, okay, well, I want to be on stage leading worship, but not because I want people's validation from being on stage. I mean, I did theater, I did all sorts of stuff outside of church. I didn't really need that from people. I was just like, I need to share with people just how much God has done for me and just how much he loves me. And I just really felt like if I could just somehow sort of kind of share a little bit of how much how much I loved him because of how much he's done for me in front of other people, maybe I could pull people into that space that I was experiencing myself, So anyways, it 100% has to do with the heart and not what it looks like on the outside, because yeah.
Yeah. A few years ago, I had a dream that uh, that I sat down with this worship group
Mm.
that's really famous in the United States, probably all over the world. And in my dream, I sat down with them and I talked to them about intention. And the dream's
Mm.
not really relevant because, I mean, unless at some point in the future this actually happened. But the Lord in the dream, I like gave them this message about intention. And when I woke up, I was like, what the heck? Like, but it
Mm.
started me on this journey of talking about intention. Cause I completely agree. Like you don't want to seek a stage because you need to be seen and you have gifts of God to give to the world, right? It's like this like dichotomy, like how do you hold two truths?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think the thing that I've seen is like the thing I love about the Lord is he's not afraid of your selfish ambition.
Hmm.
And I have watched the Lord trust people that I probably, that I for sure wouldn't have trusted. And I've like watched situations where I'm like, Lord, like you knew their heart. You knew that there was selfish ambition, or you knew that there was like hidden things in there. Like, why were they anointed? Why were they powerful? Why were they a leader?
Wow.
Why do they have all these things? And, um, and what happened one time, like I married this couple. They were leaders of a group that that I led years ago, and I did their wedding, and I knew that they were like struggling, and I like debated like telling them that I wasn't going to officiate their wedding. And I was like, Lord, I need you to give me a sign. And whenever they had their wedding rehearsal, like we're walking through, and the moment that the door opened for the bride to walk into the room, the presence of God fell in the room.
Wow.
And I was like, okay, like that's the sign. Like that's what I was looking for. It was like your hand to confirm this.
Right.
And the next day at the wedding, the same thing happened. I'm talking
Wow.
like like people were weeping. Like these two
Wow.
people were like such amazing. They're so amazing. And like I was like, God, like what? Like this is how I know like your hand's on this. And then it like they got married, and then 6 months later they were divorced. And I remember like having a conversation like, Lord, like why did you show up? Like why did you put your hand on that? And like he spoke like two things to me. One is like, Dallas, I trust people way more than you do.
Whoa, my goodness.
And the second thing is like he doesn't get hurt. Like it's not risky for him. Like for him to believe in someone, it's not a risk for him that they're going to disappoint him and he's going to be hurt, because he's independent. He's not dependent upon you showing up and coming through and being the right thing so that he can be okay. He's fully independent of himself. And so he will give trust. He will give measures of his presence. He'll give anointing. He'll give gifts in places where we think people need to earn it. And he is a
Oh,
father who will give
jeez.
trust.
Wow.
And then if you want me to go a step deeper just for you,
Yeah, let's go.
um, we will then see leaders who are completely unqualified through our discernment handle gifts and anointing and think, God, why did you trust them with that, but you haven't trusted me?
Huh.
Um, that's a personal conviction that I've been convicted of, but like,
Hmm.
um, but what I'm getting at is that like the Lord has so much more trust for people than we understand, and he can trust because he believes in us, and he believes in people so much more than we understand.
Hmm.
And I've seen that happen so many times, and it's taught me to be the same. Whenever I'm
Wow.
championing people, whenever I'm like mentoring people, when I'm raising people up, it's
Wow.
like I, like I'm not going to be offended by your failure or your selfish ambition or like stuff that needs to get worked out in you, because I'll just believe in you. And I'll believe in you, and I'll believe in you, and I'll believe in you, and I'll give it freely, because I'm not going to base my identity on whether you do a good job or not, the same way that the Father does. And like,
Right.
and then just there's this thing of like the Lord knows that if you walk with him, he'll sort it out. You got a little bit of selfish ambition, you want to stage, you want to be seen, he's not afraid of it. He'll still, and we love to say like, well, wait till you get everything perfect. And once you're so like,
Oh man,
once you have just been so secret for so long, then you'll be qualified. And then, but it's like, it's a formula that's not the Lord's. And
it's good in principle, but we're so good, especially in our Western society, at turning everything into a formula. And so it might be the message and the principle might be true that like, like the Lord, he'll exalt those who he exalts, he humbles those who he humbles. That's true. But like we can't formalize God because God does not like to be put in boxes.
no, and look, and I do believe in like the season that David had as a shepherd.
Right.
And I do believe that we do have those seasons.
Right.
Um, but that season didn't perfect David because he still came out and struggled with the things that he
Ooh.
struggled with. So it's like,
I've never thought about that before, but that's quite true, actually.
it's like God called him a man after his own heart, but he still like slept with Bathsheba. So it's like, what is the thing? And I think at the end of the day, like the Lord knew that like David wouldn't turn, that he wouldn't run. And so all I'm
Oh,
getting at is like
oh,
the
that's
Lord
so
trusts
good.
people. And like we have formulas, and I'm telling you, like that's religion. Like when you
Mm.
have a formula for what you need to do to get God to do something, then you have already missed it. You've already missed like what has been given, what he has done, and what is already available. I have a favorite worship leader right now, and he is he's funny, dude. I don't know him personally. He's from England. His name's Godfrey Birtle, and he's this older white guy, just like he's kind of goofy to me, but he writes songs that I believe are so full of truth. And he has this like, he'll like write things and say, I cannot lose your presence, only the awareness of it, and it's easy to regain.
Oh, that's oh my
He has another
goodness.
song where he says, he's like, there's no need to press in because we're already in. And
Oh,
it's like,
that is so good. Oh
and
my
so it's
goodness.
like, and this is
I-
like, if I got to talk about whatever I wanted to talk about on this podcast today, what I see in worship is a need for spirit and truth. And
Right.
when people think spirit and truth, they think spirit and honesty. But honesty is not the same thing as truth. They think honesty is, I'm going to be real with God. God, I'm struggling and I'm hurting and I'm like whatever, and I'm going to pour my like whatever out before the Lord, but like that's not truth. That might be your truth or your experience, but it's not the truth. And I believe that like we have to have worship in spirit and in truth. And when I say in truth, what I see it to be is songs that are full of the truth, the message of the truth of the gospel. And I like that's my desire, and I think that's one of the reasons why I love BlueJay so much. And
Mm.
we have like written like my favorite song. BlueJay did 7 sessions that were 2-night events. We would bring people in, we would record. You can go to YouTube. And then our 8th event was we actually recorded our own album. And my favorite song on the album is called The Kindness of the Lord. And
Mm.
to me, it is like the perfect example of like what it means to sing the truth. Um, and I really believe that over the next few years, we're going to see more songs with the truth. Like, have you ever heard the song The Blood by Mitch Wong? Um,
Uh, uh,
it's like, it's never been about performance.
yeah, that one. Yeah,
You know,
yeah. I was
it,
literally thinking about that. We were talking about that. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, I love that song because when people sing it, you're like singing the truth. It's never been about performance, or perfection or striving for acceptance. Let me tell you, it's only by the blood. It's like,
Ugh, it's
people are
so
listening
good.
to
I'm
that
getting children
song
now.
and the message of truth is getting into them. And so I really am passionate about like when we sing the truth. And like it's one like and the reason that I say that is this, and it goes back to my story. I am a worshiper and I encounter God through worship. And for years, I was having encounters with God in worship and I wasn't free. And it wasn't making me free. And I was like meeting with God and I was feeling good and God was showing up and we had his presence. But the actual truth was not there. And so I wasn't free. And now I would have moments where the Lord would speak to me in an encounter. But, I remember walking through this season at the first of 2021, I decided to do this fast. It was an extended fast. And I was like, this is going to be the best fast ever. This is going to be so much glory. Like, I'm not even going to be able to walk. Like, I'm just like thinking about how crazy it's going to be. And then like the first 14 days, I did not feel a thing. I felt nothing. And I would like go to church, I would worship, I feel nothing. And I feel the Lord, like emotionally and physically, like I
All the
feel
things.
him. And, um, and I felt nothing. And like after 2 weeks, I was like, Lord, this isn't fun. Like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm trying to teach you that you can worship me in truth the same way that you did in spirit. And I'm trying to teach you not to lean on what you feel. You don't feel me in worship. What's the truth? I'll never leave you nor forsake you. Like you don't think I'm moving in a room. What's the truth? I'm always up to something.
Wow.
And so it was this season of like 2 weeks of like this fast where the Lord was like, I'm teaching you not to lean just on what you feel. I'm teaching you to lean into the truth.
Wow.
And then it was funny because then I was so intense about like worship and truth where I would just like be in worship and just like declare the truth over me that I stopped worshiping in spirit. And the Lord had to bring me back in like one day. And he's like, you're declaring the truth and you're believing the truth, which is incense that people don't talk about, but it is. But
Interesting.
why don't you lift your heart to me? And then I'm like, oh my gosh. He's like, yeah, like that's spirit. Like you lift your heart to me, you engage with me spirit to spirit. And so anyways, like I have a passion to see worship that is the truth of the gospel, the truth of what God has done, the truth of who we are, and not making it about us, but making it about what he did, because who we are is the result of what he did. And so
That's so good. Well, we get to wrap this up and button hook this. I feel like you probably have some way to kind of button hook this, and I'm just gonna listen and then close this out. How does that sound?
yeah, that sounds great.
You got 3 minutes.
Yeah, so listen, if you guys are out there, I have a book coming out. It's called The Unforced Rhythms of Grace. Stop striving and enter the rest. And so
So good.
so look that up. But if you're listening today, I just want to pray for you. Like hopefully
Yeah.
I can end it that way.
Yeah, let's do that. Yeah. It's perfect.
Let this season be a season where you let God father you, where you just learn how to be a son. And I don't think we ever graduate from that season. Like all of these things, all of these stories is like the Lord fathering me from season to season. And so I just want to speak that over you. Like I believe that I carry the Father's heart. Like God knows your hidden ambition and intentions, and he knows where you're at, and he sees you, and he's not afraid of it. He's not afraid of the problems in your life. And at the same time, there's a truth and there's a freedom and there's a reality of who we are in Christ, in the kingdom, that will change your entire life. So God, I bless every single person who's listening. And God, I speak the heart and the love of the Father. And I pray that they would allow themselves to be fathered by God, that whatever that word means to them, God, even if they think they know you, and even if they've got the most amazing relationship and they've been walking with you as a father for 50 years, I thank you that we never graduate. We don't graduate from being sons, and we don't graduate from being daughters. And so I bless them to encounter the heart of the Father, and I bless them for understanding that the work has been finished, that you've done the heavy lifting, that breakthrough's not in the future, it's in the past. You're not withholding, and there's nothing that you haven't already done. And so God, thank you, and bless Diana in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Oh my goodness. My heart's like, woo. Anyways, yeah, we'll wrap the episode up with that. This is, sometimes there's episodes where people are telling their stories, and it's really cool and encouraging and inspiring, and there's times where there's episodes where there's just so much truth that like now needs to get broken down and digested. So I encourage you, if this episode really spoke to you, go back and listen, press pause, and sit with the Lord on some of these things that are really stirring and speaking to your heart. So yeah, hope you guys are blessed, and we'll see you in the next episode.